is it going? I haven't done this for a little while. Welcome back to a beach ASMR video. We're going to be doing some more music theory today and looking over tempo, meter and pulse. You might be wondering why I'm speaking softly. This is an ASMR video intended for relaxation as well as education in some musical terms. So we're actually going to look at these backwards. We're going to start with pulse, meter, and then tempo. Okay. I just think it works a little bit better that way to go pulse, meter, tempo. You've probably heard of these terms before. Maybe meter in a different context. We're not talking about the distance, we're talking about something else. But whatever, let's get into it. So, pulse. Pulse is the heartbeat of the music. It is that steady beat that you might feel throughout a piece of music. It's that steady beat that I don't know if you can hear that. The pulse is always the same in a piece of music. It will always be at equal increments. Sometimes when you practice, you might use a metronome to give yourself a pulse. It's a steady beat. So pulse is a steady beat. It's the steady beat. I really can't see because I've got this huge kind of pop filter microphone in front of me, so apologies for my writing, but the pulse is the steady beat. Now, meter, that is how we organize the beats. It's the I want to say it's a Z. I might be wrong. The organization of the pulse into groups. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. And then tempo from that is how many of these pulses, how many beats we have per minute. So it's the speed. The speed of the music or the beats per minute. And you've probably heard this term here, beats per minute or BPM. Okay, you almost definitely have heard beats per minute or BPM, and that is our tempo. So we have pulse, and that is the steady beat. Meter is when we organize the pulse into groups. Often it's a group of 3 or a group of 4. Often, but not always, it's a group of 3 or 4. And then tempo is the speed of the music, and that's often done as either beats per minute, or sometimes there are terms like presto. Cool, just try try and make sure you can see. Okay. I got a new phone recently, so hopefully you notice the quality is a little bit nicer than some of my previous videos. Awesome. Righto. So, pulse is our steady beat. I want us just to take a moment and think about how we can find the pulse in a piece of music, okay? What we need to do is we need to just march your feet along. I know this sounds really dumb, but the best way to learn how to find pulse is just practice every time you listen to a piece of music. You just need to let yourself tap along. You just need to let yourself kind of just tap and go with the music. If I had thought about this video a bit, I would have had a ukulele or something ready, but I don't. But I just want you to practice tapping. I'm gonna tune and see if you can tap the pulse. So you just need to tap along. Let's try a different one. You can have So you just practice tapping along whenever you hear a piece of music, and you'll learn to find that pulse, okay? Now, meter is so important. This is how we organize our pulse into groups of 3 and into groups of 4, and you'll often see it represented in a couple of different ways. And there's some different terms you might know. Just turn my sheet over, make sure you can see. Perfect. So, when we organize our meter, we do it into these things called time signatures. Time signatures, okay? And they have 2 numbers. They're kind of written like a fraction, but they're not fractions. Righto. So, we have got a top number and a bottom number. Now, our top number, that tells me how many beats are in a bar. How many beats? I'm going to say how many notes. How many notes / beats? Okay. Now my bottom number, and that can be shown often as a 4. Sometimes it will be shown as a 2, sometimes as an 8. Now my bottom number tells me what type of beats. So you might have watched my video on rhythm, and we learned about things like our crotchets and our quavers and our minims. So essentially, each of these numbers represents a different type of note. So my 4 is our most common bottom number, and that equals a crotchet. We then have a 2, and these are pretty rare, and these are a minim. Okay, and then we have 8, and 8 on the bottom is pretty common, and this is what we call a compound time signature, and this means that we're counting quavers. And our 4 and 2, we know these as simple, whereas 8, we call it a compound. Okay, so if I had 4/4, that means that I'm grouping my pulse into 4 crotchet beats. They're going to be in patterns of 4 crotchet beats. And I might count it as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could have a pattern doing quavers, and my pattern might repeat every 4 crotchet beats. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, the other really common number that we see with a 4 on the bottom is a 2. Not 2, sorry, a 3. And a 3/4 beat is often going to be a waltz. Definitely not always, especially not in popular music, but if you hear a waltz, if you feel like you could waltz to it, often it's in 3/4. Okay, so 3/4, that might be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like written out. So in 4/4, I'm gonna have my 4/4 here, and I could do, say, a crotchet, and then a minim, and then I'm going to put down a bar line to show that this is one group, and I might do the same pattern again, but I'm going to flip it around. So I have my regular pulse, put some repeat marks in there, might be this, but the rhythm I've written out, I'm going to count my meter, would sound like this. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try a beat in 3/4 now. 3/4, and I might do a pair of quavers and 2 crotchets, and we'll just do a one beat, 1 bar. So my pulse is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And when I'm identifying that in a piece of music, I'm looking for the strong beat, and I'm trying to count. So here we have, let's try count that in 4. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It just doesn't quite add up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that pair of quavers is always landing on the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we look for that strong beat. Now we could could have then a compound time signature, okay? A compound time signature. And this has got an 8 on the bottom, and we are counting the amounts of quavers in the bar. More often than not, our compound time signatures have a multiple of 3 on the top. So we have a 3, 6, 9, or 12, okay? Because in a compound time signature, we do groups of 3 quavers at a time. Now you can have time signatures compound and simple with numbers like 5 or 7 or 6. Well, 6 is a common on the compound, but 10 even. But it's not very common. Our common simple time signatures are 4, 4, and 3, 4. And our common compound ones are 3, 6, 9, and 12. We'll go for 3, 8. We'll go for 6, 8 for the sake of this exercise. And I'm going to look at groups of 3 quavers. So I'm going to draw 3 quavers, but it's not a triplet. It's not a triplet. It's just 3 quavers. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, because they're each worth their own thing now. So each quaver, instead of being worth half a beat, in kind of this instance, it's worth a full beat. Alright, it's still only worth half a crotchet. It's worth half a beat. And we count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's almost going to be a bit of a swung kind of feel to it. There's going to be an accent, really. An emphasis on 1 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just been Christmas, and the first example of a song that's come to my head is Snowman, Sia. Dun 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 pum 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 pum. My snowman. 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything that's got that think hallelujah, hallelujah. Yeah, hallelujah is a really common one, and that would be in a compound time signature, kind of in 6/8. Yeah. So we have our meter, and just to recap that, because I've been rambling on, we'll go from the very top. We're looking today at tempo, meter, and pulse, but we're actually working our way backwards. Pulse is the steady beat of the music. It's that heartbeat, that non-stop heartbeat of the music. Okay. We then have meter, and that's the organization of the pulse into groups, and often it's 3 or 4 or a multiple of 3. And then tempo, which we haven't gone into yet, is the speed of the music, and often that's in beats PM, or in a word like presto. Okay, so beats per minute and presto. Pulse, meter, tempo. Okay. We then looked at finding our pulse by tapping along and finding the heartbeat, and we practiced a couple examples of that. I'm just going to check. It looks like my camera is slipping a little bit. Okay, I think we're good. So we looked at meter, and we looked at the time signatures and our top numbers, how many notes or beats we have per bar. And the bottom number tells us what type of beats. We have our simple time signatures where there's a 4 or a 2 on the bottom. And a 4 means there's 4 crotchet beats, 2 means there's 2 minim beats. And there's also compound time signatures like 6/8, 3/8, 9/8, and 12/8. And they are split into groups of 3 quavers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And our examples are Snowman, also hallelujah. Or, yeah, hallelujah. Those are our examples of meter. Okay, so I've got pulse, we've got meter covered. We now are going to have a little look at tempo. And as we said before, tempo is the speed of the music, the speed of the music. So that's how quickly our pulse goes, how quick we can hear that pulse. Let's see if I got a fresh page here. Give me a sec. There we go, there's a fresh page. I was about to write over some old lecture notes on modal harmony, but yeah, I've forgotten it all anyways, but we found a fresh page. So let's have a look at our tempo, which we said is the speed of the music. And I'm thinking here that a clearer way to think about it might be to say the speed of the pulse. So how many times we get that pulse happening per minute, okay? And you know, our tempo can sometimes change, but right now I want to look at what it would sound like if it stayed the same. So these are our basic tempos. So we'll see tempo described in two main ways, either using a word or using a BPM, which is our beats per minute. And at the start of a lot of pieces of sheet music, you'll often see something that looks like this. A picture of a crotchet or a quaver or a minim, equal sign, and then a number. And this means that we have 120 crotchets per minute. Little Easter egg for you, I chose this because it's the most common BPM used in pop music at the moment. You know, a Logic track is automatically set to 120 BPM, same with FL Studio, and I think Ableton, but I'm not too sure. Anyways, this tells me that there's going to be 120 crotchet beats per minute. We also have Italian words that are used, so 120 crotchet beats per minute. We have some Italian words that we use, and I'll go from slow to fast. These aren't all of them. It's just I can't give you the five kind of main ones. So from slowest to quickest, we start off with largo, and when you translate that, it literally means long, and this is slow. This is kind of around your 40 to 60-ish BPM. Alright, so around that kind of range. I'm not going to be specific with the numbers because I don't remember them, but roughly, okay? We then have andante. And this is like walking pace. You go, kind of you'd walk around andante. And that's not fast than 6 BPM. That's kind of around just 76 BPM kind of mark is your andante, around that area, maybe a bit quicker, maybe a bit slower. We then move into Allegro. I want to make sure you can still see. Okay. We'll flip in a minute. So you got Allegro. We'll only do 4. And this is quite a big jump up. This is, we'll call it fast. Imagine jogging. Like a jogging kind of pace. And this is going to be your, let's say, 115 to, I don't know, like 145 BPM. Someone will tell me that this is wrong. It's just sort of kind of roughly. It's around here. And then we'll just move this up here. And then the last one I want to do is presto. And this is like sprinting. And presto is going to be kind of your 160 BPM plus. You're hitting your kind of presto. So we go largo. And that's going to be super slow. 1 beat per second or less. Really quite slow. Andante, that's about walking pace, so a lot of marches are going to be andante. We then have allegro, and that's kind of fast or jogging. That's going to be pretty solid. That kind of speed there. We then have presto, and that is going to be your sprinting. Pretty quick. Okay, now there's 2 more terms I wanted to tell you about, and that is what we want to do when we want to change our tempo. 2 more terms. We have accelerando. Let me just check my spellings on this one actually. Okay, right, we're back. Just make sure. So we have accelerando, 1L. And this is when we are getting quicker. So if we're speeding up, we are using accelerando. There's also then these 2 terms. We have rallentando or retardando, but they are always put as rit or ral. And these both mean getting slower, okay? But we have ral is gradually getting slower. Whereas rit is more you are holding back. So a rallentando might be kind of very grand, slowing down, it takes its time, whereas a rit, you might see it in a shorter space of time and it might feel a bit more blunt in terms of its slowing. It might almost be like you're holding on the brakes, whereas ral feels like you're just taking your foot off the accelerator and you're drifting, whereas a rit feels like you're holding on the brakes. Ral feels like you're just coming to a gradual stop. Okay, neither of them are particularly blunt or abrupt. You might then also look at a tempo, and this means back to the original. So back to your original tempo. And also we have rubato, and that loosely means like robbed. kind of time, and this is where you move freely for expressive effect. So a lot of solo piano music. We use rubato, and it's used for an expressive effect. So let's have a recap on everything we have learned so far from our tempo, our meter, and our pulse. And then I think we'll call it there. So today we've learned about tempo, meter, and pulse. Pulse is the steady beat. Meter is the organisation of the pulse into groups, normally 3 or 4. And tempo is the speed of the music, aka beats per minute, or Italian words like presto. We then had a look at meter, where the top tells us how many notes or beats there are, and the bottom number tells us what type of beats. They can either be simple, aka crotchets and minims, 4 and 2, or compound, which is quavers. Our 4/4 might look like this: 3/4, 1, 2, 3, and 6/8. An example of a compound might look like that, and songs you might know include Snowman and Hallelujah. We then went and looked at tempo, and we looked that our beats per minute is represented by a picture of the note and then the number. Crotchet equals 120 beats per minute. Largo is slow, andante walking paced, allegro fast, presto sprinting. We had a look at our main kind of types of tempos that you might see. We then had a look at tempo devices, things that we might use to change the tempo. We had accelerandos getting quicker, roll and rit are gradually getting slower / holding back. This one is more gradual, this one's more like applying the brakes. We then looked at our tempo, means we revisit the original tempo, and rubato is rob time, aka free tempo. I hope that's been somewhat useful to you and at least a bit relaxing. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and all I've got to say now is see you later. Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.